U.S. Congress gets one step closer to blocking TikTok. China steps up military activity near Taiwan, and China's economy is facing its biggest crisis yet. And more on this week's China News headlines. Welcome to China Uncensored. I'm Chris Chappell. This episode is sponsored by Surfshark. Whenever you go online, you should be using a VPN like Surfshark to cover your tracks and protect your identity. I'll tell you more at the end. Now, for those of us who say Congress never gets anything done, well, this time Congress has exceeded our very low expectations. On Wednesday, the U.S. House of Representatives passed a bill about TikTok. But while the NBC News headline describes it as a ban on TikTok, that's not what the bill does. If only the media could also exceed our very low expectations. At this point, I'd be impressed if they accurately described the color of the grass instead of just sounding like they're smoking some. The bill is not a ban. Its goal is to force TikTok's parent company, ByteDance, to sell TikTok to a non-Chinese company. That's because ByteDance is controlled directly by America's biggest foreign adversary, the Chinese Communist Party. If ByteDance refuses to sell TikTok, then the bill requires that TikTok be removed from app stores and American web hosting services. The next step now is for the Senate to pass the bill, and then for President Biden to sign it, which he says he will. If that happens, then ByteDance / the Chinese Communist Party will face two bad choices. Option 1, sell TikTok and give up control over the app. Option 2 is to allow the bill to kick TikTok out of the US. That would mean TikTok loses tons of money, like 40% of its revenue. So if this bill becomes law, it will achieve one of two potentially great results without having to technically ban TikTok. Though whatever happens, we should probably ban 81-year-old presidents from being on an app designed for teenagers. Oh God, no cap, this is cringe, fam. Now there's a lot of misinformation spreading about this TikTok bill, like comparing it to the Patriot Act, or saying it's a Trojan horse and it's just the next step till the US government will ban X, Rumble, and so on. That's because although the bill is specifically about TikTok, it could also apply to other apps and websites controlled by a foreign adversary of the US. But it does not give the government the ability to just ban whatever willy-nilly, not even slightly. I encourage you to read the bill for yourself. I put a link below. It's not long. And if you do read it, you'll realize a few things. 1, the bill only applies to TikTok and other apps actually controlled by a foreign adversary, a definition that includes only 4 countries: China, Iran, Russia, and North Korea. And there's a high standard for what constitutes control. 2, the bill only applies if the app presents a demonstrated and significant threat to national security. Control by one of these foreign governments alone isn't enough. 3, the bill only applies once the president has notified the public and provided a report to Congress detailing specifically why it threatens national security. And 4, the bill is not a ban. It just forces those foreign adversary-controlled companies to sell the app. That's the goal. The app would only be blocked if they refuse to sell. That's why I believe this bill, the way it's written, is a pretty good bill. It will either make TikTok safer or get rid of it. So how did Congress members from both major political parties come together to pass this bill? TikTok helped them. Not on purpose, though. Ahead of a key committee vote last week, TikTok pushed out notices like this one to its American users, saying Congress is planning a total ban of TikTok, which is not actually what the bill does. It also allowed users to put in their zip code to find their congressman and directly call them to demand they don't strip 170 million Americans of their constitutional right to free expression, which is also not what the bill does. Wow, I never thought I'd find something less accurate than the media. I'd be mad if that wasn't so impressive. The thing is, this is not a free speech issue. It's a social media is being controlled directly by an authoritarian power that's undermining America issue. If ByteDance sells TikTok, Americans get to keep their platform and their free speech. And if ByteDance won't sell, then that's on them for taking away American speech. Don't be fooled. The Chinese Communist Party cares about free speech the same way that giraffes care about tasty leaves on tall tree branches. They just can't wait to snatch it away. But don't worry about TikTok's message being a complete lie. It worked. Phone calls from TikTok users flooded congressional offices last week, to the point where one congressional staffer said, "We're getting a lot of calls from high schoolers asking what a congressman is." I can't tell if that's a more damning indictment of TikTok or the American public school system. Anyway, Democratic Congressman Raja Krishnamurthy, one of the bill's co-sponsors, said, "I talked to so many people who were leaning yes, and then they became a hell yes after this happened." So, TikTok's attempt to turn millions of its users into foot soldiers did influence the vote, just not in the direction they wanted. Major backfire. Ultimately, the bill passed 352 to 65 in the House of Representatives on Wednesday. Now the bill moves on to the U.S. Senate, where it might not pass because TikTok has sent its CEO to beg them to block it. Hopefully politicians won't be swayed by how he'd love to try and convince them. Please exceed our very low expectations, senators. See, even though this is a bipartisan bill, there's still a lot of opposition. Donald Trump posted on Truth Social that if you get rid of TikTok, Facebook and Zuckerschmuck will double their business, and Facebook is a true enemy of the people. Why does Trump feel he has to use Zuckerschmuck to slander Mark Zuckerberg? Can't he call him something more mature? Like Kuckerberg? Anyway, Trump later clarified that TikTok is a national security threat, but Facebook is also still an enemy of the people. So, TikTok bad, also Facebook bad. Trump has actually said TikTok is bad for a long time. In mid-2020, Trump ordered ByteDance to divest from TikTok within 90 days, which is basically the same thing this bill does, except Trump used an executive order. His order also targeted WeChat, which is owned by a different Chinese company. The problem was an executive order doesn't have as much legal power as a law passed by Congress. TikTok and WeChat filed injunctions and ultimately got a judge to block Trump's executive order. Not a ban, people, not a ban. Why do reporters not understand this? Anyway, if the same thing can be done through a law passed by Congress, especially one as bipartisan as this, it will stick. So now the bill moves on to the Senate, but here's where it gets dark. A number of Republicans are now advocating for TikTok, including former Trump advisor Kellyanne Conway. Why are they advocating for TikTok? Because of this guy, American billionaire Jeff Yass. He owns a 7% stake in TikTok's Chinese parent company, ByteDance. That means his share is worth around $15 billion. Jeff Yass is also a mega donor to Republican campaigns. And when I say mega donor, I mean during the 2022 midterm elections, Yass donated $47 million to help Republican candidates and committees, making him the third largest conservative political donor in America. Kellyanne Conway works for the Club for Growth, and Jeff Yass is one of their largest funders too. He gave them $10 million in 2022. Kellyanne Conway has had at least 10 meetings with Congress advocating for TikTok in recent months. And as the TikTok bill goes through the Senate, it could be blocked by Senate Republicans like Rand Paul. Because, in what I'm sure is pure coincidence, Jeff Yass gave more than $10 million to super PACs supporting Rand Paul's 2022 political campaign. If that's unclear, the New York Post created this helpful infographic. And you know who agrees with Republican Rand Paul in opposing the TikTok bill? Progressive Democrat AOC, who tweeted why she was voting no on the bill. I know it seems super weird that these two agree on anything, but in what I'm sure is also a pure coincidence. TikTok's parent company, ByteDance, donated $150,000 to the Congressional Hispanic Caucus Foundation, of which AOC is one of only 38 members. So I guess there is one principle political opponents can't agree on. And after the break, China is stepping up its military activity. Welcome back. China is also paying attention to what happens in the U.S. general election this year. According to CNN, China is worried about the return of Trump, but it also sees opportunities if he wins. China is worried because Trump can be unpredictable, and not just in what he posts online. An unhinged Christmas rant? Trump is the gift that never stops giving, no matter how much you wish he would. For example, he could slap even bigger trade tariffs on China's imports, or even decouple the two economies. On the other hand, CNN says if Trump goes too far with his America First policy, it could hurt U.S. trade with other Western nations, meaning there's opportunity for China to fill that gap. That gap too, actually. Either way, of course, CNN will criticize whatever Trump does, and either way, by sensationalizing everything Trump, CNN will get more clicks. So CNN is basically like China. It's worried about the return of Trump, but also sees opportunities if he wins. The Chinese regime is preparing for war against Taiwan in a lot of ways, but one of them is by trying to normalize military drills near Taiwan. That includes China's People's Liberation Army, the PLA, doing joint combat readiness patrols near the island on average every 7 to 10 days. Each time they mobilize around 10 warplanes and 3 or 4 naval ships. The PLA is also flying warplanes nearly every day into Taiwan's air defense identification zones. That forces Taiwan's Air Force to constantly be on alert and scramble jets to respond. Their goal is to wear down the Taiwanese military to the point where they just accept letting Chinese troops get closer and closer. It's kind of like how in old sitcoms, the loser character would keep harassing the hot girl for a date, hoping it would wear her down and she'd finally accept. But the actual result is that Taiwan has increased its military budget and stepped up its resistance. Because Taiwan will never accept a loser taking them out. You go, girl. Meanwhile, Taiwan's incoming Vice President Xiaobi Kim visited Washington, D.C. this week. It's a politically sensitive visit since anything even vaguely related to Taiwan can, anger China. You say you're a Type A personality? China will go, Type A? How dare you? Xiao is not just the incoming vice president, she also served until late last year as Taiwan's de facto ambassador to the U.S. So she has relationships with lots of U.S. officials. Officially, Xiao is on a private trip in the U.S. Capitol to pack belongings she left behind from her time living there. But according to the Wall Street Journal's unnamed sources, Xiao also plans to discuss the new Taipei government's agenda with members of the Biden administration. Which is good because, as I believe I mentioned, the Chinese regime is preparing for war against Taiwan. Speaking of war preparations, China is including some of its friends in its war preparations, especially Iran and Russia. Together they staged joint naval drills in the Gulf of Oman, which is close to both Iran and India. They're putting on a little play with their pals. Isn't that adorable? Russia defended the drills by saying they would focus on the protection of maritime economic activity, while China called it the Maritime Security Belt 2024. Why is China obsessed with belts? To keep Xi Jinping's pants from falling down? I'm not fat, I'm just big-boned, in the middle. The point is, authoritarian leaders have come together for this important naval exercise, despite their differences. And they do have a lot of differences. For example, when it comes to how to handle political threats, Russia poisons people, China harvests their organs, and Iran simply stones them to death. And after the break, China faces its worst economic crisis yet. Welcome back. A U.S. intelligence report paints a bleak picture of China's economy, predicting it will continue to slow even further over the next few years. That's partly because of structural barriers, which is to say, Xi Jinping is trying to tighten his control over the economy, tighter than the belt around his giant middle bones. But more control means less free market, and even under communism, free market policies have been the only real driver of China's economic growth. Plus, because Xi is tightening control, foreign investors are also starting to pull out, which is a big blow to China. That hurts China's economy even more than Tiger King dealing with a tiger accident at his tiger park. You'd think he and China should have seen that coming. Meanwhile, China is scrambling to prevent yet another big property developer from going bust. We've talked before about the implosion of developers Evergrande and Country Garden. This latest one is called Vanke. It's also a residential real estate developer. On Monday, the ratings agency Moody's downgraded Vanke's bonds to junk status. And that's especially bad because, unlike those two other developers, Vanke is largely state-owned. A third of it is owned by Shenzhen Metro, which is controlled by the local government of Shenzhen.
If this one goes down, that shakes confidence much further in the government's ability as well to put a floor on this falling property market.
Yes, China managed to crash even lower on our already very, very, very low expectations. The situation is so bad that even Chinese state-run media aren't claiming things are good. They're merely saying China is ramping up efforts to stabilize the real estate market amid adjustments. Right. They'd have an easier time using Band-Aids to stabilize homes at the epicenter of an earthquake. But there's at least some good news coming out of China this week. China has finally released the English edition of selected readings from the Works of Xi Jinping Volume 2. Unfortunately for Xi Jinping, I don't think a lot of people are going to read his book, unless of course they're forced to, which has happened before. It's sad. When an American president writes a book, people flock to read it. Not Xi Jinping, though, which is why I suggest he remarket his book as The Audacity of Xi Jinping Thought on Socialism with Chinese Characteristics for a New Era. You're welcome for the free advice. Although I wouldn't trust much of what I read in that book. I'd be shocked if he can even truthfully describe the color of the grass instead of just sounding like he's smoking some. And I have a video I want to show you, but first, this episode is sponsored by Surfshark. When you go online, everything you do is potentially compromised, unless you're taking active steps to protect yourself. No matter where you live, no matter what you do online, you should always be keeping your internet activity private with a VPN like Surfshark, especially when you're doing things like logging into your bank account or credit card online. If you ever use shared Wi-Fi, you're in danger. Even low-rent hackers can steal your password without you even knowing. And when you travel, especially overseas, you might need a VPN that makes it look like you're in your home country just to log into your accounts. So it saves a huge potential hassle. And you can install it on as many devices as you want, even on your Amazon Fire TV stick. You know, if you want to make it appear like you're logged in from a different country so you can access all the good Netflix shows that are geo-blocked. So seriously, check out Surfshark. Go to surfshark.com/uncensored to get up to 3 additional months for free. That's surfshark.com/uncensored and use the code uncensored. The link is in the description. And check out this video I made as a tribute to the creator of Dragon Ball, Akira Toriyama. It's a little emotional. Let me know what you think. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching China Uncensored.